guys, welcome back to another episode of the build section of the BMTroubleU. I am hoping that this is going to be the last one for a while because I'm getting kind of close to getting this thing fired up. A few little jobs. The plan is that we get it out to Goldstone next weekend for a shakedown, just for a test and see how it does. And if all that's successful, there's another few bits and pieces that I want to do to it. But I have been working on the car. I'll just show you some of the bits and pieces inside here. So the fuel tank is now in and finished. You can just see it there. So I just gave it a paint up. Rubber connection up to the fuel cap. So that's all good. The fuel pump and filter is in there now, and it's all connected up this end. Smiler was making the suggestion of maybe moving the fuel pump because it could be a bit prone to damage in there. So we'll see how we get on with the test, and if I want it, we can go and move it there. Battery is now mounted in and wired. Well, this cable here is just hanging there until I get the front section of the car wired up, but pretty much all complete back here. Just to finish off the rear end of the car, the the firewall just has to go back in here. So that's pretty simple. It's there, it's ready. I just have to drill out some of the rivets and put that back in. So with all that done, it's now time to concentrate on the front of the car here. So what I want to do is I want to remove this bar here, which is kind of the standard BMW bar for the steering column, and take out the mountings and stuff like that. I'm going to get that out, and I want to put in a bar going across the roll cage. So I'm going to mount up the column to that bar. It looks like this is very high, so I'm probably going to mount it a little bit lower, but we'll put the seat in before we decide on that. With that across, I'm not putting the dashboard back in it. I just want to make up a switch panel for here, and that will allow me to continue on with the wiring, get the few bits and pieces here connected up. The battery switch, I've got the engine loom to connect up there, wipers and a few bits and pieces, so nothing too bad. Once I've all that done, there's a couple of bits to be bolted up to the gearbox, and doors have to go back onto it. I'm not too concerned with putting the bodywork back on, just the doors for the moment for the shakedown, and we'll see how we get on. Okay, so I've got the standard steering column removed from the car, and I've measured up the distance between the legs. I've got it cut out there now over a piece of tube, a little bit longer than I want. What I'm going to try and do is try and put in a longer tube just to move the legs apart as much as possible, because there's a little bit of there's a big gap from the door pillar to the cage. So hopefully leaving this a bit long will push that out and get rid of some of that gap. So I'm almost ready to notch it. I've got my tube notcher out there and ready to go. But first I want to just strike a line along the top here, just to give me a reference point so that I'm cutting on the same level, if you like, both ends, so that one end is not twisted in relation to the other. So yeah, I'm going to mark that up, and then we start notching away here. So I'll just leave you down here. Oh, sorry. Mint. Just clean up the ends now and get them ready for welding. It's a little bit longer, as I said, than the gap that's there, but let's see if we can get it in, and it'll help move the cage out that bit anyway. So that fits. Not so bad, delighted with that. That needs to be welded up. First, I'm going for a cup of tea. Talk to you in a bit. So tea is got, and I've been back out here. I have the roll cage, or that bar welded in there now. So next job I want to do is to mount up the steering column. So the steering column needs some sort of bar taken out off of that dash bar to catch that, and then we need to catch the quickener as well. So I'll have to have something going back the way. But before I do that, I want to bolt in the seat. So I've been making up some crossbars just to go across there, bolt in, and next job is to get the seat down. So I'll get that down, put the side frames onto it, and we'll see where that seat ends up. So that's the seat that we'll be using. Again, it's another piece that we just had in the shed. It came out of a different car quite a while ago. They got broke. So I have some side mounts to go onto it that way. We'll get that bolted up and we'll see what way it fits in. So yeah, first impressions is it's probably a bit too low. No harm having a bit of headroom, but if that's kind of shoulder there below the door line, might be a bit low. But I'll try and get in here and let's see what it feels like. So head height actually reasonable enough. I'm happy enough with that, but I'm probably a bit too far forward now. My knees are up a bit, so I need to get it back a little bit. But everything feels pretty good there. Bar just pedals. So yeah, if I can get it back, I think we'll probably be okay. That should just about work. So I wasn't happy after sitting in the seat and that. I wasn't happy with the brackets that I had in the car across here. So in an attempt to kind of simplify things, I managed also to way overcomplicate it. So now I've made these two up here. So they're just a bit of inch angle iron. It's got a captive nut welded in there for the front of the side rails, and then it's the bolt goes straight through. So I just sit that on top there. Bolt goes through there and bolt goes through there. So the same the other side. So the proof of the pudding is in the eating, or sitting, maybe in this case. Let's try it out and see what it feels like. Oh. Yeah. Brake. That is pretty much perfect. It's just a law when you get into the car, you have to do. And it is not the law, it should be. Okay, so with the seat in place where I want it, I have the steering column pretty much exactly where it needs to be. I just set it up with a cable tie there, just temporary. So I've been making up the bracket that's going to come off the dash bar and attach to this. I'll just show it to you over here. So pretty simple job. It's just a piece of 3/4 inch tube bent around in as tight a hoop as I could get it. Made up a plate, then just bent it over to give it a bit of strength this side, and I'm just going to tack it into place here and just see how that fits up. So I've got this pretty much wrapped up here now as far as the steering column goes. I've got the support welded onto the dash bar. That's all bolted up. I've also got the quickener in here, and that is bolted up here as well. There's a little brace brought up to stop it having any twisting or anything like that. So that's sorted. Next job is I'm going to just weld on a tab here so that I can put on a piece of aluminium sheet, and we'll just get the switches and the bits and pieces fitted in there so I can get this thing wired and hopefully get her fired up. Okay, so I have a few bits and pieces made up for this. I have a plate there that I'm going to mount the switches, the breaker, all that kind of stuff is going to go on that, fuses and everything. To mount that up, I just have a piece of angle just bent up of light steel, and I'm going to tack that onto the dash bar and get that in there, and then I can put some riv nuts in that and just bolt up that. I also have, just because it's at a different angle than this support going across there, I'm just going to tack in this at the same angle that the plate is at. Yes, bye. That'll work. Pretty perfect there anyway. That's exactly what I wanted. So next job, just going to put a little bit of wrap on it just to make it look nice and get it fitted, get it wired. It's another pretty major operation. Everything is taking way longer than it should, or I thought it probably would. But we have the switch panel wrapped, kind of a chameleon carbon fibre that I had knocking around. I have most of the switches in. I have to get a couple of switches for there, and I want to get a new 6-way fuse panel because it's broken. Actually, one of the lugs is broke off it. A few gauges to go in there. I have some of the switches marked up and a good motivational message just so I don't forget what this car is for. I was also working on the back here, so I have a lot of the kind of pre-wiring done that I can do on the bench. So some of the fuses are wired up. As I say, that's getting changed, but it's just plug them out and plug into the new one. So that's ready to go into the car and get the car loom mated up to that and hopefully get this bloody engine started. Most of the way there, I have most of the wiring done. You can see all the switches and stuff are in there. Have to put in a few gauges still have to get a couple of terminals for those just to go onto the kill switch, but I've been testing and everything seems to be working. I have it there now that the fuel system is primed. I'm just going to turn over the engine a few times just to get a bit of oil pressure into it, hopefully. And this is genuinely first start since the wiring was done, so let's just see what happens. Okay, so fuel pump is off. There was enough fuel in the rail to get it going, so I have the fuel pump working there now. But whew, that's been a lot of work to get this far. That's why there hasn't been a video in a couple of days or a couple of weeks. But yeah, let's see if we can get this bitch to go. That's just a face of relief. There's been so much work in trying to get that thing up and this far. Still a little bit to do, but there's my carbon monoxide alarm. I'll just open up the door. But yeah, really happy. Thanks very much for tuning in. Thanks very much for sharing this with me. And we'll talk to you next week. Just like clockwork. Cheers. Take it easy.